Hi, this is Nicola Matrano and Giovanna Jerez. We worked on the article titled The Role of Reading in Fostering Transcultural Competence by Kieko Koda.
What is transcultural competence? According to the Modern Language Association, transcultural competence is the ability to comprehend and analyze the cultural narratives that appear in every kind of expressive form. What does this mean? This means as writers, observers, and readers, we should be able to understand the works of literature expressed by those whose culture might differ from ours. Reading ability is the ability to comprehend and understand text. In order to fully understand some text, transcultural understanding is needed, therefore indicating that transcultural competence can improve reading ability.
As educators, our main objective is for our students to be able to understand what it is that we're saying to them and what they're reading. In order to help our students construct meaning from a text, they must be able to do the following operations. This article referred to them as decoding, text information building, and reader model construction. In our classroom, these things might be called decoding, comprehending, constructing meaning, making inferences, using metacognitive awareness. Whatever it is we refer to them to our students, the main objective again is for the students to understand what it is that they're reading.
Decoding. According to the Coda article, decoding is the extracting of lexical information from printed words through two sequential processing components, which are phonological and morphological elements. Phonological elements have to do with the creation of sound and pronunciation of the words, and morphological elements are the internal structures that work together to form words. Morphemes are the smallest units of speech, and together, uh, this forms our words. There are two types of words: inflected, which includes endings that have been put to words like suffixes, like bugs, the S will be a suffix, and derivational, which involves the formation of new words. Now, there are different strategies for decoding. You can look for smaller words in larger words. Some call this chunking it out. You can identify prefixes like un and unwanted, or suffixes like I said before, bugs, the S will be a suffix. You can also identify and break apart compound words like sunglasses is made up of two smaller words. And you can always learn different spelling rules like the silent E at the end, or when you're doing vowel teams, different strategies that help you decode the English language when reading.
The next operation that Coda refers to is text information building. When readers are using this operation, what they're doing is they're extracting lexical information from the text that they're reading. They're looking at word meanings, and they're taking those word meanings and applying them in ways in which they already know how to. They look at the syntactic arrangement of words, how they're ordered in a sentence, does it make sense to them? They're looking at the semantics and the pragmatics to see how all of this works together to create meaning in their life, meaning in the text, any way in which that they could make a connection to what it is that they're reading. Just a quick overview of what these practices are. Syntax is the order in which words are used to form a phrase or a sentence. Semantics involves the study of meaning of words in a language, thus how those words work together. And pragmatics studies the ways that context contributes to meaning. It also includes any prior knowledge that a person may have of a content area that they're reading, or anything really that they're trying to make connections to or with, as well as inferred meanings of content. Pragmatics also explains how language users are able to overcome apparent ambiguity, since meaning relies on the manner, the place, and the time of an utterance. So what exactly is ambiguity? We know it. We come across it quite often. Multiple meaning words, phrases that could be inferred or taken literal. These are things that are ambiguous, especially to people who are learning a language for the first time and might not be familiar with the multiple meaning of a word or a phrase. Or they may not be familiar at all with figurative language. So here's an example of an ambiguous sentence. You have a green light. Well, what is that exactly does that mean? In order to really understand what that sentence means, you have to look at the sentence the way it's being used in context. There are 4 examples of what possibly this sentence could mean. In driving terms, it could be that you're driving through a green traffic light. Again, while you're driving, a green light means you no longer have to wait. You may now go. That could also be applied in school. A lot of schools I see have stoplights in the lunchroom. Red means stop talking, yellow means quiet down, and green means go. Another meaning for you have a green light could be you're permitted. You have the green light. My mother gave me the green light to stay up late tonight. And lastly, well, not lastly, but another example of you have a green light could possibly be the literal term of you have a green light bulb. Something like that. ELLs might have a lot of problems with ambiguity because simply they are not familiar enough with the language and they don't know that some things have multiple meanings, and they're not well versed, many of them are not yet well versed in figurative language. As we know, pragmatics is the way in which learners use prior knowledge and inferencing to make meaning of what it is they're reading, or even what it is that they're being spoken to about. Other ways to understand meaning through the use of pragmatics is eye contact. In some cultures, eye contact from teacher to student is not respectful, and the student generally looks down. And whereas in the American culture, eye contact is huge, we almost look at it as a sign of disrespect if our students are not looking at us when we're speaking to them. Another example of how pragmatics could help construct meaning is the person who's delivering the speaking. How are they using their body language? Are they very emotional about what they're saying? Are they standoffish? Are their arms folded? Can you get a sense of the mood that they're in based on how they're speaking? Also, their tone of voice. If someone's speaking in a soft voice, what does that indicate? Whereas someone is speaking in a stern voice. These are all things that help learners make meaning of what it is that is either being spoken to them about or how they're reading something.
Reading model construction. This theory describes the complete reading process from recognizing words and constructing a representation of meaning of text. This model involves connecting current and past knowledge to infer information not provided in the text to construct meaning and full comprehension of the text. The emphasis of this theory is on constructing whole meaning using prior knowledge. Connections between transcultural competence and reading ability. As stated earlier, reading ability fosters transcultural competence and vice versa. They both share the same principles, comprehension and analysis. To acquire this, comprehension entails 3 levels: reading lines, reading between the lines, and reading beyond the lines. This explores 3 possible ways of utilizing reading instruction to enhance transcultural competence.
So the first skill that Gray refers to as being instrumental and research-based for improving mapping skills is reading lines. What this means is that in order to have strong comprehension, well-established mapping skills must be in place. So in order to develop these mapping skills, learners must use the process of detecting, extracting, and internalizing structural regularities that are implicit in input. Again, they have to look at the whole and try to make meaning of it using prior knowledge, using inferencing. Because not everything is going to be explicitly taught or explicitly said. So this is where all your metacognitive awareness comes into play. And of course, input has a lot to do with improving your mapping skills. Your input frequency and input and experience, they're the key determinants of what is learned and how well it is learned. Learners should be provided with many opportunities to engage in input analysis in order to better strengthen their mapping abilities. Simply said, this means that they should be able to analyze what it is they're reading, what people are saying to them. That way they're able to use all of these skills to decode it, encode it, construct it, deconstruct it, and then just put it in syntactic, pragmatic, semantic meaning. That way they can construct what it is that they're being taught. Okay, so we mentioned mapping, but what exactly are mapping skills? So reading comprehension is a multifaceted process that depends on the student's cognitive development, experiences, and their prior knowledge of a subject. And it's also their ability to make inferences. So the best way to do this is to use your mapping skills, okay? It's the way you acquire, you code, you store, you recall, and you decode information. How can we, as educators, help our students strengthen these internal mapping skills? Well, one way is to teach them how to break apart the content so that it's understandable. This can be done with the use of note-taking strategies. This is also referred to as close reading, where students do not read a chapter at a time and then try to summarize it. What they do is they read a little bit, they make connections, they jot notes down, they write down their wonderings, their questions, their connections. By taking your time and reading closely, you're able to have a better sense of what it is that you're reading. Just live by quality over quantity. How many times have we, even as adults, read 50 pages and we did it in record time, but yet we can't even recall anything that we've read? So in order to really make meaning of what it is that one is reading, you need to go slowly and really process and internalize everything that's happening. And through note-taking skills and mapping skills, this could be better performed and you'll have a better connection to your text. There's a variety of graphic organizers, concept webs, semantic maps that can be used to help our students organize their information, which they can later apply to classroom tasks and, of course, most importantly, real-life situations.
Reading between lines, enhancing text-based inference skills. As mentioned before, text do not always provide the relational information necessary. When these conceptual gaps occur during text meaning construction, a missing link must be created through inference by activating prior knowledge. Inferencing skills are critical for text comprehension. The question is whether these analytical skills can be taught directly. As readers' active involvement in encoding relations among text statements, it will produce increased in their L2 text comprehension and retention. It seems possible to enhance inferencing skills through focused sub-skills training. Reading beyond the lines, promoting knowledge incorporation. To gain new insight, reading must go beyond basic comprehension. A way to do this is when the reader senses a new relationship among conceptual elements within a knowledgeable base, or new conceptual relationships between multiple knowledgeable bases. For understanding to occur, one must incorporate the reader's prior knowledge. This indicates that what one can learn from a particular text is largely determined by how much he or she knows about this topic, but also how well she can incorporate the knowledge in the assembled text information.
So there are a lot of misconceptions that if someone is learning a foreign language, they must be learning everything from the grammar skills to the inner workings of the language itself, and this therefore must make them transcultural. I know Spanish, so I understand the entire Spanish culture. Well, that's not necessarily true, and there is some research that I'm just going to read off that supports the fact that foreign language reading ability doesn't necessarily mean that you're competent in understanding the language, the L2, and also that you're not fully aware of that culture. So it says some studies have shown that high levels of oral proficiency do not always lead to efficient decoding skills. Just because I'm able to speak a little bit of Spanish doesn't necessarily mean that I'm able to read every word in Spanish. Another study by McWinnett and Bates indicates that linguistic knowledge is treated as a continually developing, ever-changing entity, not something that is static. So what this means is that it does not seem possible that linguistic knowledge can be promoted through explanation and memorization of grammatical rules. Same thing when we're teaching English, whether to ELs or to our native English-speaking population. Just drill and kill is not necessarily going to be the way in which the children understand everything. Rote memorization is not always the way in which they're going to comprehend. They have to learn by doing, by experiencing. So again, another study indicates that fluent reading requires rapid and effortless access to word meaning. Skills readers are constantly analyzing word elements such as phonemes and morphemes. In this view, it's improbable that reading fluency can be enhanced solely by explicit instruction on grammar and vocabulary. You have to just look at the word and really understand what it is that it's saying, what it's meaning. With these views in mind, it's essential that teachers do not confuse foreign language linguistic ability with reading ability or transcultural competence. Reading is a phenomena that requires the compilation of many skills to be utilized at the same time. Readers are expected to build upon schema, use metacognitive awareness, and apply analytical practices in order to acquire new knowledge. And teachers must always model reading skills using a cultural lens so that transcultural competence is embedded in all forms of expression. So this was supposed to be an article on transcultural competence, and it turns out to be an article on how reading fosters transcultural competence, and it's all pertaining to a reader's read ability. So why is transcultural competence essential to today's students? Actually, transcultural competence is essential to all citizens, not just students, all ages, all races, all religions, because we live in a very diverse world. Our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, our peers, those who may be of a different race, religion, or skin color can always teach us something new. So if we have tolerance of and empathy towards these others, okay, those who may not be exactly like us, we can learn new customs, new traditions, new ways of life, and have an appreciation for these things. Glover and Friedman indicate that functioning successfully within different cultures can be a struggle for many professionals, I would add students as well, as the world changes. It's become clear that dealing with other cultures, both domestic and international, requires competence in both identifying and transcending cultural boundaries. This is definitely true of our native and our L students. We must cultivate a culture that promotes and appreciates diversity. by teaching readers how to improve their reading abilities through the three main operations discussed throughout this presentation. We're providing our students with the analytical tools that they can use to view themselves through the lens of another culture. Remember, all teachers are expected to be culturally relevant in that we have to understand our own culture as much as we have to understand the cultures of the students that sit before us in order to really show them how we function as a society and have a true appreciation of the diversity of our world. Good teachers teach students how to apply analytical reading skills in order to construct meaning. However, culturally relevant teachers use these same best practices, but they ensure they select the texts that promote transcultural competence. Our hope is that after hearing our presentation and learning about transcultural competence, you can take away something from this presentation that will enable you to teach your students how to read, look, and listen in a way in which promotes transcultural competence. We would like to know if it's evident that your students are using the analytical operations of decoding, information building, and reader model construction in order to augment reading ability. If it is evident, will you keep going with the same practices? And if it's not evident that your students are utilizing all of these operations, what implications can you use to make lessons that could be better delivered in a way that will help your students utilize these operations? Thank you so much for listening to our presentation, and we hope that there's something that you definitely were able to take away from this.